Out from the marsh, from the foot of misty hills and bogs, bearing God's hatred, Grendel came, hoping to kill anyone he could trap on this trip to the High Herat.
Grendel snatched at the first Geat he came to, ripped him apart, cut his body to bits with powerful jaws, drank the blood from his veins, and bolted him down, hands and feet. Death and Grendel's teeth came together, snapping life short.
Then he stepped to another, still body, clutched at Beowulf with his claws, grasped at a strong-hearted wakeful sleeper, and was instantly seized himself, claws bent back as Beowulf leaned up on one arm.
Grendel's one thought was to run from Beowulf, flee back to his marsh and hide there. This was a different Herat than the hall he had emptied.
But Hygelac's follower remembered his final boast, and standing erect, stopped the monster's flight, fastened those claws in his fists till they cracked, clutched Grendel closer.
All of Beowulf's band had jumped from their beds, ancestral swords raised and ready, determined to protect their prince if they could.
Not hurt him. The sharpest and hardest iron could not scratch at his skin, for that sin-stained demon had bewitched all men's weapons, laid spells that blunted every mortal man's blade. His time had come, his days were over, his death near.
He twisted in pain, and the bleeding sinews deep in his shoulder snapped, muscle and bone split and broke. The battle was over. Beowulf had been granted new glory.
Grendel escaped, but wounded as he was, could flee to his den, his miserable hole at the bottom of the marsh, only to die, to wait for the end of all his days.
And after that bloody combat, the Danes laughed with delight. No Dane doubted the victory, for the proof, hanging high from the rafters where Beowulf had hung it, was the monster's arm, claw, and shoulder and all.
He leaped into the lake. For hours he sank through the waves, and all at once the greedy she-wolf, who'd ruled those waters for 500 years, discovered him, saw that a creature from above had come to explore the bottom of her wet world.
She welcomed him in her claws, clutched at him savagely but could not harm him, tried to work her fingers through the tight ring woven mail on his breast, but tore and scratched in vain. Then she carried him, armor and sword and all, to her home.
He struggled to free his weapon and failed. The fight brought other monsters swimming to see her catch, a host of sea beasts who beat at his mail shirt, stabbing with tusks and teeth as they followed along.
Then he saw the mighty water witch and swung his sword, his ring-marked blade, straight at her head. But her guest discovered that no sword could slice her evil skin, that her hunting could not hurt her, was useless now when he needed it.
They wrestled. She ripped and tore and clawed at him, bit holes in his helmet, and that too failed him. He tossed his sword aside, angry. If weapons were useless, he'd use his hands, the strength in his fingers.
He raised his arms and seized her by the shoulder. Anger doubled his strength. He threw her to the floor.
Grendel's fierce mother, and the Geat's proud prince was ready to leap on her, but she rose at once and repaid him with her clutching claws, wildly tearing at him.
His feet stumbled, and in an instant she had him down, held helpless. Squatting with her weight on his stomach, she drew a dagger, brown with dried blood, and prepared to avenge her only son.
But he was stretched on his back, and her stabbing blade was blunted by the woven mail shirt he wore on his chest. The hammered links held, the point could not touch him.
Then he saw, hanging on the wall, a heavy sword hammered by giants, strong and blessed with their magic, the best of all weapons.
And then, savage, now angry and desperate, lifted it high over his head and struck with all the strength he had left, caught her in the neck and cut it through, broke bones and all.
Her body fell to the floor lifeless, the sword was wet with her blood, and Beowulf rejoiced at the sight.
Beowulf repaid Grendel for those visits, found him lying dead in his corner, armless.
Then struck off his head with a single swift blow. The body jerked for the last time, then lay still.
More mead! Grendel came, hoping to kill.
He raised his arms and seized her by the shoulder, Wait, where do I go to? Sorry.
And then, You know what? I think I started. They wrestled. She ripped and tore and clawed at him, but bit holes in his helmet.